everything I say. Okay, everyone take a picture. Media, if you have your gadgets, please give them to me now. Okay. Good afternoon. Once again, good afternoon. Well, somebody forgot their coffee? All right. Well, don't next time. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 13 months of sunshine, ladies and gentlemen, the land of origins. And this is not a joke because it came right in June, at the end of June, beginning of July, where you actually see the rain and the sun at the same time. That doesn't happen a lot anywhere in the world, does it? So we are very, very happy to have you here with us from wherever you came around the world. You're now in the country of origins. Ethiopia is the cradle of mankind. You know, dating as far back as 3.5 million years. Actually, I thought it's more than that, but some people argued it's not actually 5 million years, but I said, okay, fine. It's at least confirmed 3.5 million years ago. Lucy was found here. And it's the birthplace of one of the finest drinks in the world, coffee. I didn't even plan to mention coffee earlier, but I did, because it's something that we cannot separate from ourselves. And we also had a chance to host the World Coffee Conference, the fourth, here in Ethiopia, and it was really amazing. And next to it, we had AFCA, the African Fine Coffee Conference, right here in this very auditorium. So, welcome to the birthplace of coffee, and the finest coffee at that. And this is a country that enjoys sun throughout the year, no matter what kind of season we're in. And a country with ancient civilization, a country with more than 80 different nations and nationalities that speak different languages, that have different cultures, fascinating cultures at that. And the seat of course, the African Union, and over 100 international agencies, several of them, of course, from the United Nations. And this is a country full of people that smile at you at any time, anywhere, almost for no reason in hospitality. So, welcome to the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, Dr. Debretsion ገብረ-ሚካኤል, Minister of Communication and Information Technology of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, honorable ministers and state ministers and high-level government officials present here amongst us, and Ato Tshoma Werko, Director of Private Sector ICT Development Directorate at the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, and Ato Siyum Beredet, President of ICT ET, Corporate ICT Sectoral Association, and Ms. Leslie Reed, USA Mission Director to Ethiopia, and Mr. Noah Samar, founder and CEO of Gasoline USA, and Mr. Jose Cordero, founding energy advisor, Singularity University, and Director of Millennium Project Venezuela Note, and distinguished ambassadors, invited guests, participants, ICT experts, exhibitors, members of the media and organizing team, and of course, lovers of ICT. Ladies and gentlemen, for me, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to ICT EXPO Ethiopia 2017. Please welcome yourselves with a round of applause with me. My name is and I will be serving as MC/moderator for the opening and closing ceremony of this expo, and it's truly an honor for you to be standing before you here. And please be kind to me if I'm on to mess up some of the information. At times, it's very difficult to be standing in front of people like you, so please be kind to me in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, so this expo is a continuation of the previous exhibition that has been held for 9 consecutive years at Addis Ababa Exhibition Center, and now it's we're taking it to an international level with unique additions and facilities that require, of course, a bigger venue like this. And it is Ethiopia's largest and most expensive and extensive ICT exhibition conference and summit, and welcome to it, and it's really exciting, I guess. And ICT EXPO Ethiopia is where established technology service vendors, private and public sector decision makers, and integrators and users of ICT technology for business and public good, as well as disruptive startups with unique solutions come together to create important networks and build valuable partnership here.
And this expo will give us the opportunity to show the rest of the world that Ethiopia is ready to embrace technology and to walk alongside with the digital world.
The outcomes of this expo will serve the country as a catalyst in the process of shifting the industry from agricultural-led economy, the economy from agricultural-led to industry-led economy. And with that, I'm sure you've seen how so many industrial parks that we're building and launching every other week and every other month throughout the country. And it's hoped that this ICT Expo will be held annually at an international level, aspiring to be registered in the world's ICT Expo calendar, where you mark your calendars every year to come and join.
And the fast-growing economy and the extensive developments that's happening in the country is a very, very good market for ICT experts and technology
providers around the world. And the Expo presents a very unique, very special opportunity because it's happening at the same time with the 29th African Union Summit, and it's going to give a lot of you a very good opportunity to get to know and meet African delegates alongside this event. We have about 172 exhibitions to visit here in the coming 5 days, which is a very great indicator, a big indicator of the fact that ICT is now becoming a major conference destination, conference tourism destination in the world, like Dubai, like you name it, other countries. The Ethiopian government is working round the clock to restructure the city, how it looks, the roads, the infrastructure, the telecom services, and the hospitality areas. Everything is being restructured, so we need international standards, and people who come here to actually be a part of such huge events can find it convenient, as they do in other parts of the world. And ICT Expo Ethiopia 2017 is organized by the Federal Ministry of Communication, Information Technology, MCIT, and ICT ET Association is the facilitator. With this, I'm going to recognize our sponsors who made this event possible, and without their support, this event would not have been possible. They are the ones who pay for everything, including myself, of course. And so in honor of these sponsors, I'm going to quickly go through them. Our platinum sponsors are Ethio Telecom, Techno Mobile, and Huawei Mobile. Please give them a round of applause, please. Thank you for sponsoring us. And our silver sponsors are US8 and Yasmin. Please give them a round of applause. Our bronze sponsors are Cent, Cisco, Digital Africa Telecom, Kafia, Financial Technologies, ZTE, Deloitte, and Simon. Another round of applause for our bronze sponsors.
And partner sponsors are Oracle and Mastercard.
Of course, our official career is Ethiopian Airlines. Media partner is EBS, your choice, your favorite TV station. And finally, our hospitality partners are Jupiter International Hotel, Ambassador Hotel right across the road, and Sapphire at this hotel. Please give them one more round of applause. Thank you so much. So, thank you. With this, I'm going to call for Satota Shoma Werko. He is the Director of Private Sector ICT Development Directorate at the Ministry of Communication, Information Technology. And he will come here and give us his welcome speech. Please welcome him to the podium for me.
Dear Excellency, Dr. Debretsion Gebremikael, Minister of Communication and Information Technology, Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished speakers, distinguished exhibitors and participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Sorry, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to this international event, ICT Expo 2017. Dear Excellency, preparations have been underway to make this event successful for the last 1 year, and lots of participants, exhibitors, speakers, and other champions of the sector have confirmed to take part in this expo. As has been explained, the different promotional media outlets, the expo mainly comprises several events such as exhibition showcase, side event panel discussion, scientific research and academic, and many other networking events. In the exhibition hall, in different pavilions such as hardware, software, academia and research, and government pavilions. This arrangement has attracted several companies internationally and locally to showcase their solution and thereby attracting their customers, partners, and collaborators to this crowd of networking events. In addition to product and service showcase, a series of conferences for the 5-day-long period have also been arranged as the side event, mainly on the core socio-economic sectors like health, education, finance, and agriculture. There is also a pavilion arranged for the startups, whereby new solutions and innovative ideas to be displayed at the large crowd of the visitors, and more than 25 innovative startups and companies have been registered to this show. There is also a 1-day-long conference mainly focusing on scientific research, and around 7 best research papers have been selected out of the 14 submissions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this conference is Digital Ethiopia, which focused with sub-theme of digital finance, digital agriculture, digital education digital health, and digital education, as these sectors are expected to be the trajectory path for the journey to socio-economic development endeavors for the countries. The goal of this combined event, therefore, is expected to reaffirm that Ethiopia is ready for a new digital age and to serve as a platform for companies, government actors, invited speakers, and attendees to come together and craft solutions for the new digital age. Conference participants will discuss current global trends in the digital space, examine how society is affected by shifts in technology, and redefine cross-sectoral solutions to bring about impactful digital innovations in this digital era. These all activities expected to boosting investment, innovation, market access, and user satisfaction, which in turn has a high impact on the country's GDP. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, considering on the quantity and quality of the exhibitors, companies, speakers, invited participants, and the more participation of private and government actors of the sector, this expo is expected to be visited by more than 300,000 visitors within this 5-day-long event. The participation of the international delegates, which we have registered online and in person, show that around 300 guests represented from 45 countries will take part as a visitor, a speaker, and exhibitor of the event. This gave us a high confidence for the event to be registered as a flagship in the region and will be considered as one of the technology expo regularly conducted in the African region. This achievement mainly has been found not only by the commitment of the ministry, but also with utmost support of the sponsors and partners of this event. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to thank the international and local sponsors, partners in different support categories of the event, and all involved parties for the success of this expo. Last but not least, I wish you all a wonderful event that fulfills your interest. I thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ato Shomewerko, Director of Private Sector ICT Development Directorate at MCIT. Now we're going to go to another opening remark by Ato Siyum Beredit, President of ICT Association. Please welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael, Minister of Information and Communication Technology of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellencies, Ministers and State Ministers, Government Representatives, Excellencies, Ambassadors, representatives of international development agencies, distinguished delegates, sponsors and exhibitors, distinguished speakers of our plenary session and conference, invited guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and an honor for me to give, on behalf of our station ICT on this, a remark on this opening session of the first of its kind, Ethiopia's largest and most comprehensive international event, ICT EXPO 2017. This expo is a timely and important initiative by our host, the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, and facilitated by our station ICT. Since its founding in 2010, our just 6-year-old corporate association has been serving and actively playing a role in bridging the gap between the private and public sector. With the theme, Expose, Enable, and Engage, it has co-organized various national and international events, summits, represented the private sectors at important national and international events, and worked tirelessly to promote the development of ICT ecosystem here in Ethiopia, and it is continuing to do so. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, this event brings together high-level decision makers and practitioners, as well as stakeholders of key development sectors, with the aim of reflecting on how to bring information communication technology within the Ethiopian context and at a larger scale. This expo also serves as the platform to develop multinational and cross-sector, cross-industry contacts and partnership with the aim of enhancing their knowledge, expertise, and abilities. As we all know, over the past decade, Ethiopia's achievement has been remarkable, and the overall outlook of the country is also very optimistic. This is indeed an exciting time for Ethiopia, and the overall theme of this ICT Expo, Digital Ethiopia, captures this excitement. The ICT Expo 2017 is also aimed to creating dialogue for accelerating a building of ICT, enhanced platforms and capacities across the board. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the 10th anniversary of the National ICT Week event, which has now been upgraded from the previous national event to an international expo of this landmark Millennium Hall, has brought together various stakeholders of the ICT domain from within Ethiopia, our continent Africa, and beyond. The event creates an opportunity for participants to share knowledge and experiences in the use of ICT and the promotion of local entrepreneurs and networks who can then start collaborating to support the ICT ecosystem and development and experience. As many of us notice, when it comes to the decision of advancement in the ICT sector, the conversation is normally dominated by the talk of North America, Europe, and Asia. However, many African countries, including Ethiopia, are now demanding a place in this discussion. And the continent's rapid growth and market conditions may well be changing the traditional notions of what innovation is and where it can come from. According to McKinsey's Global Institute, in the next 10 years, the global consumer market is expected to grow significantly. This growth is giving rise to the exploring technology sector that seems to know no boundaries. The consumer spending in Africa is also growing 2 or 3 times faster than the developed countries. In the past few years alone, the information and communication technology sector in sub-Saharan Africa experienced an annual compound growth rate of 40%, the fastest globally. And in the last decade, telecommunication companies added over 400 million African cell phone subscribers, more than the entire population of the United States. Excellencies, invited guests, and ladies and gentlemen, one of the interesting things about new technology is that because so many countries in Africa have come late to the development, they have actually leapfrogged. And the applications that they have developed, especially for the mobile telephony, for one, are far more advanced than many of the things you will see in other locations. From South Africa's social network and web apps to Kenya's advantage in the mobile payment space and Ghana's up-and-coming tech sector, and the recently inaugurated technology park in Ethiopia, Ethio ICT Village, which is the ministry's flagship project among others, and many more around the continent are all compelling stories on where innovations and investment in both African business and African tech are taking us. And tech-inspired entrepreneurs and businesses are innovating to keep up with the growing demands and needs of Africa's increasingly tech-enabled markets. However, despite this enormous growth, many African countries, including Ethiopia, are lacking investment and solid networks for its entrepreneurs to grow their ideas beyond micro-enterprises into larger and more stable businesses. In an attempt to capitalize on the knowledge of the local market demands, efforts to harness and formalize African-born ideas are currently underway. ICT EXPO 2017 is one such platform of enhancing those innovative ideas pertinent to the development of national and regional ICT ecosystems. As African economies surge forward to new technologies and business opportunities, the stories of innovation and breakthrough will emerge from all levels of African markets. And these stories will not only challenge the traditional role of innovation, but they should also make us rethink Africa's development and its place in the discussion. It's widely believed that for developing countries to emerge strong and competitive in the international stage, and the way out of present poverty in the shortest possible time is by using ICT as a tool. This by itself should be sufficient enough to motivate us to contribute to the national and continental vision for the ICT development in our continent so that every aspect of citizens' life is ICT assisted. Nevertheless, using ICT also raises a number of issues, especially in the light of pressing problems faced by many developing countries. Lack of access to ICT also raises a number of issues, and especially in light of the pressing problems faced by these countries. Lack of access to ICT, electricity, and relatively higher cost of access to the internet, as well as illiteracy, has exacerbated the problem by adding yet another layer of inequality to already existing gaps. Establishing an informed society and knowledge-based economy is the only way to address these present challenges. In their context, where extensive needs must be addressed with very limited resources, ICTs have to be used in a strategic manner, as it saves a lot of time and lots of other resources. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Ethiopian ICT Expo 2017 event comes at a moment when the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, working with its development partners and the private sector, is highly engaged in promoting the use of ICTs as well as development of ICT infrastructures in the country. In fact, the national ICT strategy document for telecommunications and ICT domain attached a lot of importance, not only to development of ICT infrastructure, but also to the integration of ICT in the daily life of its citizens. As part of contribution of the national effort, our corporate membership-based association, ICT ET, has been engaged in bridging the gaps between the private and public sector and works closely with the various stakeholders so that the ICT ecosystem is developed and supports the various ongoing developments agenda of our country, Ethiopia. There is a growing amount of research that aims at bringing out a critical role of the information and communication technologies in improving the socio-economic political status of developing nations in general and sub-Saharan Africa in particular. These technologies have in fact been penetrating the sub-Saharan Africa at an exponential rate. The same can be said about Ethiopia. My wish is that this event should reveal some of these trends, also trigger actions from the various stakeholders towards the improvement of existing ICT tools and usage in our respective countries of our continent. I therefore invite all participants to explore the rich components of this expo with the theme Digital Ethiopia, and also provide necessary positive contribution towards the success of this event. We should also develop strategies to uncover issues with a particular input, areas like localization, digital finance, agriculture, health, and education. Furthermore, we need to emphasize the innovative use of information technology to provide low-cost solutions that have gone a long way to support strategies in different areas and help in advancing the world economy. The ICT EXPO 2017 event is one way of opening a window for our emerging economies to adapt to this paradigm. I hereby encourage particularly the youth as well as stakeholders in Ethiopia and sub-Saharan African countries and beyond to explore the opportunities offered by this event, especially those that are centered on the very sensitive topics of discussions and debates. Finally, I wish to acknowledge with appreciation the guidance and unwavering support given to our session by our Minister, Dr. Debretsion, His Excellency Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael, the role played by the organizer of this event, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, particularly the Private Sector Development Directorate Director, Ato Tashoma Werku, and his team, my colleagues from ICT Board, in particular our Vice President, Ato Yilika Alabata, our event management team and sponsors, panelists and moderators, as well as Ethiopian-based partners. Last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. Jordan Fiabansky and Nejat from Dalberg Consulting for their support in working on the panel sessions, identifying speakers, and organizing the whole thing. I will not end this speech without expressing on behalf of ICT Association of Ethiopia and myself a warm welcome to all our guests, and I wish you all a very fruitful deliberation. Enjoy the 5 days event, and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Tosiyum Baraddad. He is the president of the ICT Corporate ICT Sectoral Association. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the final part of the first section, which is the official opening speech by His Excellency Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael. He is the Minister of Communications, Information Technology, and for that, I'm going to ask kindly for the director to come here and take the honor of inviting him, and that will be Ato Tashoma Werku to come here and take the honor of inviting His Excellency Dr. Debretsion for me.
Okay, thank you. This is the time to invite His Excellency Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael for his official speech for the event. Thank you.
Excellencies, honorable ministers, state ministers, government representatives, distinguished speakers, distinguished exhibitors and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, not good morning. First and foremost, on behalf of the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and myself, I humbly welcome each of you distinguished participants of this international expo and conference, which highlights the value of information technology industry, particularly of the digital transformation space in all socio-economic development endeavors. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is really a great honor for me to speak in here to a crowd of distinguished guests and participants coming from more than 45 countries from around the world. We are indeed happy to host you and wish you a productive participation and stay. Ethiopia is a country known for its cultural and natural diversities and a land of peace and stability in Africa. Being the seat of the African Union, Addis Ababa has successfully organized various international events, including summits of the heads of state and governments in many occasions. We are now gathered here to host the ICT EXPO Ethiopia 2017 with theme Digital Ethiopia. The goal of the event is to reaffirm that Ethiopia is ready for a new digital age and to serve as a platform for government, private sector, academia, and other stakeholders to come together and craft solutions for the new digital age. Conference participants will discuss current global trends in the digital space, examine how society is affected in view of socio-economic sectors by shifts in technology, and redefine cross-sectional solutions to bring about impactful digital innovations in this digital era. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, technology, particularly of the information world, has become a dominant driver of change in today's society. And the internet is a prime example of one of the most radical technological changes since the innovation of electricity. As researchers say, we increasingly live in proxy digital world. We cannot unplug our society anymore. This technological revolution offers an ocean of opportunity for business to develop new services and new products. With a sense of immediacy acquired via the internet and access to vast amount of information, the game is changing. The internet has an impact on society, mainly on the socio-economic development endeavors. Information that was previously difficult to access is now available online. A substantial amount of public sector information is published online as open data. It is seen in the world that the space of change in business continues to accelerate, and everyone is faced with the challenge of digital transformation and gaining the understanding of how it will change the way we live in and work now. In this time of technological disruption, business industries must gear towards being equipped with the necessary digital and management skills to adapt and innovate. Industries like business process outsourcing, healthcare, telecommunications, and real estate, among others, will shake up and are expected to offer more technological-driven services to achieve process optimization, business transformation, and higher customer satisfaction. Digital transformation in the form of artificial intelligence, deep learning, Internet of Things, big data, and analytics are just what business needs to engage, disrupt, and thrive. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, when the world leaders signed the MDGs at the United Nations in New York in 2000, it was expected that all concerned efforts and actions will be taken by all countries to ensure timely achievement of MDGs. There are some countries that have made progress, but the majorities of developing countries, especially from Africa, have been found lagging behind and have not realized the targets of the MDGs that ended up by 2015. As part of the implementation of the MDGs, Ethiopia has made commendable progress by the construction of the terrestrial national optic fiber optic nationwide. The backbone, which connects all administrative, regional, and district centers, so far covers a distance of more than 20,000 kilometers. This has put in place a playground of all the digital initiatives at the national and regional level. Studies made by the World Bank estimates the economic growth rises by 1.38% for every increase of 10% in high-speed internet connections. These are among the facts which drive Ethiopia to prioritize ICT infrastructure development in its development agenda. Significant ICT transformations brought by the national ICT backbone are enormously, particularly those that serve as a tool in facilitation for the creation of the knowledge society and bridging digital divide, particularly in the rural areas. As we have always been saying, that poverty is the first enemy of all the developing nations in general and for Ethiopia in particular. In this context, the first growth and transformation plan of Ethiopia, which we have successfully completed 2 years back, has formulated a playground for the country to commence an industrialization-led economy in the country. The second national growth and transformation plan, which we have launched, is also expected to register a great progress towards achieving the targets of the middle income category by 2025. As part of the initiative, the journey of our industrialization, the government of Ethiopia has also taken serious commitments on realization of manufacturing sector as the principal driver of the country's economic development endeavors. Several ICT industry development platforms are in place to harmonize the initiatives of the private sector development ecosystem, and the direction taken by the government for establishing different industry and technological parks are one among others. As a result, positive developments have been registered on the manufacturing of ICT products and services in the last 2 years. Ethiopia has already got into the export business in digital space by way of assembled mobile apparatus, the neighboring African regions such as West, Central, and Eastern Africa regions, which in turn has a significant contribution to the national GDP and creation of economic ties with the neighboring countries. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are holding the ICT EXPO Ethiopia with the theme Digital Ethiopia at a time when the realms of globalization have brought benefits and opportunities for many people in many parts of the world. However, many others have been excluded from its positive impact. In most developing countries, extreme poverty remains a daily reality where more than 1 billion people subsist on less than $1 a day and have meager means to survive. With this in mind, Ethiopia has found it important to invest in science and technology, as well as information and communication technologies, believing that development of both areas can clearly be a major contributor to the implementation of the second Growth and Transformation Plan. We put the potential of ICTs as a service and catalyzed development in areas such as health, agriculture, education, finance, transport, and thereby sustaining our average double-digit economic growth and development that we have registered for more than a decade. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding the advances made possible by ICTs, there are still great steps to be made. A significant percentage of the world's population does not have access to the internet and the vast online sources of information and knowledge. We must do everything in our capacity to increase access to ICTs and broadband connectivity across the world, including reaching people in remote and underserved areas, landlocked countries, small island developing states, and the least developed countries. This will empower millions of people and enable us to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered a diverse and distinguished group of people to attend this important summit, from policymakers to service providers, major end users, investors, multinational companies, and solution providers. This unique expo does not just talk about the need of digital transformation, but provides a platform to facilitate the implementation of these technologies through an innovative blend of workshops, advisor clinics, conference program, product, service showcases, and facilitate networking. The conference program and workshops will steer the debates and help you to share perspectives and understanding, while the meeting arrangements will help you to connect with the potential partners and explore opportunities for collaboration and growth. I encourage you to fully embrace all opportunities and take full advantage of this unique opportunity to connect, communicate, and collaborate. Excellencies, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me use this opportunity to request ministers and delegates present at this Expo or Summit to join our concerted efforts in exploring better solutions to the problems affecting our citizens. Let us further strengthen our existing partnerships to consolidate our strategies toward building digital society. Let us unite by connecting our countries with ICT infrastructures, ICT investment, and other collaborative capacity building programs for the journey to digital transformation. In conclusion, I sincerely thank all the institutions who invest their expertise and time in organizing this expo, and all the sponsors for their great support and indulgence to make this event possible. I wish also all delegates and participants a fruitful conference in this fascinating summit, and I also encourage you to reserve extra days for a joyful stay in Addis Ababa, and from now on, I declare that this event is officially open, and thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I can't resist to mention this all the time. Him and I are on the same stage. He's so interested in technology, and he speaks reading from his iPod. Is that what you call it, iPod? This is very unique, you know. He doesn't read from papers. He actually types it and then brings it with his iPod. And sometimes he leaves it on the stage for me to translate it. So I think you're actually the true minister of ICT. Well, thank you. I did not expect that. Thank you. That encourages him a lot. Thank you. Yes, so the opportunity is big here in this country. ICT is now the big talk. We have tremendous opportunities. Look at our colleges and universities. in a few years, we went from 3 or 5 universities to over 50 here, and we have USAID Mission Director Leslie Reed, who's going to be speaking on behalf of the American government and the American people. And then we have, of course, Mr. Noah Samara, founder and CEO of Yasmi USA. He is an international satellite broadcasting company owner and founder, who actually is providing an excellent way of providing students that do not have access to the internet in the rural areas of Africa and Ethiopia with unique ways of getting very special materials of education. He will be speaking, and finally we have an amazing motivational speech and related to ICT by Mr. Dr. Jose Cordeiro, founding energy advisor from the Singularity University and director of the Millennium Project Venezuela Node. These 3 people, please give me your presentations if you have any on a flash drive, if you're not speaking from a paper or your own.
The modern world we're living in has intertwined with technology completely. It's changing our daily routine without us even realizing it. In recent times, Ethiopia is committed to becoming a middle-income country by 2025, and it has by far shown encouraging strides in the expansion of utilizing information and communication technology for our country's second growth and transformation plan, or GTP2, and it has been reached to a conclusion that the meaningful role in making significant efforts in the ICT arena is necessary.
ICT is a common denominator for all sectors. You need ICT intervention in any form to facilitate the activities within the sectors, within institutions, and the time of response will be shorter. And well, ICT has a lot of capability actually to bring many things, as I said, into one. We say that there is a convergence within the technology, so it will make our life much easier. So this can be demonstrated in education, in health, in agriculture, as I said, efficiency, and of course effectiveness at the end of the day can also be achieved by using ICT to facilitate all the processes within the institution and the connection actually, or the services that you deliver, as long as they are supported by ICT. Transparency, so this is what we call good governance in general, can also be attained partly by using ICT in terms of applications. It can be used in mobile application, it can be used in other gadgets. So application is one of the manifestations that we can get out of ICT, and by its own, it's also an industry. This electronic industry, like mobile, we have already started in this country, mobile assembling, computer assembling, other gadgets can be assembled. So by its own, it's an industry for local market, and if you have the capability, of course, we have also started it in our country for export. So itself is an economy by its own right. So this has it's a plus for the economy. From the services point of view, actually, there are studies that say that if you increase the infrastructure, specifically broadband infrastructure, by 10%, you can gain 1.38% of GDP growth of the country. So this summarizes how ICT can support the socio-economic of a country or a nation.
One of the honorable mentions for this effort is the implementation of telecommunications sector, in which the state sets an ambitious plan to increase telephone sets and penetrations threefold. As in 2007, it was 1.2 million to 54.8 million at the end of 2016. This rapid infrastructural growth includes also upgrading the existing ICT network, improving the network quality of service, providing universal access, building the human resource capacity, and to benefit from coverage and affordable services. Thus, 16.9 million of the population has gotten access to mobile internet at the end of 2016. On top of that, the government has made the development of ICT one of its strategic priorities. One of the guiding principles of the ICT policy is that the government shall actively collaborate with different stakeholders to promote and encourage the use of ICT towards transforming Ethiopia to a knowledgeable and information society. For instance, with the SchoolNet project today, over 2,500 secondary level schools have access to plasma TVs. Aside all these activities, the government is also building an ICT park which is aimed to attract private sectors towards the goal. Currently, in order to promote prosperity in Ethiopians' lives, the government had made a strategic plan of e-government to modernize and catalyze the workflow in government institutions to satisfy the citizens. Overall, the e-government strategy's main goal is to bridge the gap between the government and its citizens, to make reality of smooth interactions and good governance provided. The theme for 2017's ICT Expo is Mastering the Digital Transformation Process, which is likely to be the defining core competency of the 21st century. The modern world has reached the digital age where the internet has completely taken over humans' day-to-day activities, because of whom half of the world's population is a loyal user of this service. In comparison to the rest of the world, Africa relatively isn't moving in the same pace. For instance, we can mention the number of citizens that have access to the internet. The report that was released the previous year states that it's only 20% of the general population that has access to particular service. Ethiopia has made a clear statement in executing information strategy in which ICT has an unparalleled influence not only on the national level, but can put our country in the spotlight from the entire East Africa. With surprising combinations of guests, innovative solutions, sensational designs, passionate narratives, this ICT Expo Ethiopia conference will bring together highly specialized professionals with unique skill sets, as well as speakers and attendees with riveting innovative stories, business models, and products that fuse diverse disciplines to make the world a better place.
The platform, well, mainly it is to demonstrate the capability of ICT. And at the same time, we also want to link it to the progress made in our country, and to see the gaps as well, and what we are going to do in the future. So those actors have to fill in the gap that should be addressed. ICT is, of course, a basic pillar in our development. So we have to bring all these actors, and they have to talk to each other. They have to share their experience, the progress made, and as I said, to fill also the gaps. So at the end of the day, one, there will be a great awareness of the ICT development of the country and the applications and the other interventions that should be made. And another, we feel that there will be some collaboration that can be created out of this conference, because different actors will come, not only the local one, but the international actors. So some networking can be developed, and this will definitely help and augment our ICT development. So in a nutshell, this is what we expect from this conference.
The conference has been divided to highlight 4 main sectors. Africa has one of the highest unbanked rates of the world, with some countries reaching up to 80% of the population being unbanked. Transaction costs are pervasive and affect both businesses and the poor. While innovations like mobile-based financial tools have dramatically lowered the cost of delivering financial services, credit and financial flows still move at a very slow pace across a whole economies, including Ethiopia's. In this session, participants from varied realms of expertise will discuss. Ethiopia has committed itself to shifting its agrarian economy to one that is led by industry. Through carefully designed policies, we expect these changes to be rapid and to require an extensive, digitally enabled transformation. A shift of the type we envision not only requires innovation in service provision, but also improving inputs, increasing productivity, and reducing loss. As agricultural transformation is the pillar of our country's commitment to change, how agricultural digitalization can help Ethiopia take the center stage in this session. The health sector is a pioneer in digitalization and is usually at the forefront of innovations. Both by innovating in products and services, digitalization in the health sector can literally save lives. Speakers, attendees, and companies will address varied topics in this portion of the conference: ICT-enabled health systems, mHealth, e-health, remote analysis and diagnosis, innovative products and brands, and ultimately we'll discuss how the mechanism of digitalization can not only overcome health challenges, but also create the space and avenue for new jobs and new businesses. Creating digital literacy early in life is critical to ensuring that our country can keep up with the new trends as well as create them. With accelerated technological change, more skilled manpower, new channels of learning, and a continuous shift educational culture, education systems increasingly require the ability to create agile problem solvers in any economy. In this session, participants will delve into questions of how to create a compelling ICT environment that
from the private sector, civil society, and development partners. I'm afraid I don't have a visual presentation for you, but I would like to share a few reflections and some of the examples of ICT and USAID's work here in Ethiopia, particularly in the fields of health, finance, and agriculture. So information and communication technology has changed every aspect of our lives. Most of us own mobile phones, have email addresses, and rely on computers and the internet to do our daily jobs. Total worldwide cellular subscriptions have grown from 730 million in the year 2000 to 7.4 billion today. And while we know that not everyone on the planet has a cell phone, that is approximately one subscription for every person who's alive today. There are also thought to be more than 770 million mobile subscriptions in Africa alone. Technology is moving in leaps and bounds, with what was once considered science fiction now becoming reality. Driverless cars are being tested on the streets, and drones are beginning to deliver packages of even pizza. Clearly, innovation is reaching new frontiers every day. Technological advancements offer African countries an opportunity to accelerate their development trajectory. The ongoing digital revolution is transforming the way in which businesses, consumers, and governments operate and interact with one another. This newfound access to information and services is empowering individuals, opening new channels for delivering more effective and scalable services from governments and from the private sector, spurring greater participation in the formal economy and enabling a more adaptive, data-driven approach to decision-making. Here in Ethiopia, ICT access is forecasted to grow faster than some peer African countries. Ethiopia is expected to have more cellular subscriptions per 100 people than either Kenya or Tanzania by the year 2030. However, Ethiopia is coming from a low starting point, with mobile penetration rates in Ethiopia still quite low at 23%. Internet penetration is even lower, and the cost of going online is still quite high compared to other countries. Moreover, Ethiopian women are 21% less likely to own mobile phones than their male counterparts, and the gender gap in internet usage is even wider at 60%. So while there are challenges, opportunities also abound. A recent World Bank report specifically identified health and agriculture as two sectors that would benefit greatly from more advanced ICT infrastructure in Ethiopia. In agriculture, mobile applications, sensors, and remote imagery to monitor weather patterns can be utilized to increase productivity and to reduce vulnerability to shocks. In health, electronic medical records and streamline the delivery of health services. GIS mapping can also improve the response to disease outbreaks and aid with the distribution of medical supplies. Globally, USAID strongly believes in the catalytic impact of ICT. We're supporting those efforts throughout the world to improve the lives of millions of poor and vulnerable people by supporting the development of digital economies and the adoption of digital tools and data-driven approaches. Let me cite some examples of our assistance in the area of health, digital agriculture, and digital finance. In health, USAID is supporting the digitization of health information systems to improve patient care and evidence-based decision-making. With USAID assistance, the Ministry of Health is developing and rolling out information systems that capture routine health data, community-based information, and supply chain information. USAID is also supporting the ministry to incorporate global standards for traceability of pharmaceuticals, and this ensures patient safety and increases the efficiency of the supply chain. In agriculture, USAID projects are incorporating digital approaches to maximize the dissemination of information to smallholder farmers. Satellite data is applied to generate custom grazing maps, which help pastoralists make better decisions about where to move their herds in the face of increasing drought risks. And local insurance companies are using the data to develop affordable, weather-based insurance that can reach rural households. In finance, USAID is supporting an e-payment pilot in Amhara to provide cash transfers under the Productive Safety Net Program, or PSNP. This activity is coupled with strong financial literacy components to bring ICT-based solutions to vulnerable households. These are just a few of some great examples of how a digital Ethiopia can accelerate development. The U.S. government applauds initiatives to use innovative yet appropriate technology to address development challenges in Ethiopia and around the world, and we will continue to look for smart solutions. I wish you all a very productive conference and look forward to being a part of the digital transformation here in Ethiopia. Thank you, and Amasaganalu.
Thank you, Madam Director, and don't worry, I'm not disappointed you didn't speak from an iPod. Yes, we are really grateful to your government for everything that you're doing to our country, and recently we have developed a guide for investors for the USAID. Well, I think it should be USAID, right? Because I heard you saying that over and over. So we will be referring to it as USAID, Agency for International Development, not USAID. Yeah, so they asked us to develop a magazine that would give directions to people in America who would like to come to Ethiopia and invest. So it was more of an investor's guide. And USAID commissioned it, and we produced about 250 copies of that magazine, and it's sent out to America. So, you know, potential investors can come to Ethiopia, see what the opportunities of investment in this country are and what the country is like. So we are really grateful for your support in everything that you do here. And now we're going to go to my second speaker, that's Dr. Jose Cordero, Founding Energy Advisor from the Singularity University and Director of the Millennium Project, Venezuela Node. Please welcome him to the stage for me.
Well, good afternoon. It is a real pleasure for me to be here in Ethiopia. This is my first trip here. In fact, this is my first day here. But I want to tell you about the future because we live in incredible times. I work with many futuristic organizations around the planet. One of those is the Millennium Project that began as the futuristic part of the United Nations. Even though now it is an independent NGO, we cover all the issues of the future, and basically we look at the long-term development possibilities of the planet. The first country in the history of humanity that doubled its income per capita was the United Kingdom during the Industrial Revolution, and it required 58 years to double its income. Then other countries learned, like the USA, that did it in 40-something years. But now the world record is China. China, every 7, 8, 9 years, is doubling its income per capita. This is really incredible. We live in exponential times. Today, there is no excuse to be poor anymore. No excuse to be a developing nation, because now we know how to grow very fast, thanks to the accumulated experience of different countries. Until the 18th century, I'm just trying to see where we are here. Okay, until the 18th century, we lived in what was called the Malthusian trap. There was no economic development in the planet, really. But then the Industrial Revolution began, and there was incredible growth during the 19th century. We had almost 100% GDP growth, and then the 20th century, we grew 400%. In this 21st century, we might grow 2,000%. We truly live in incredible times. I like to say that in the next 2 decades, we are going to see more changes than in the last 2,000 years. So this is the best time to be alive because of the incredible changes in development. In the Millennium Project, we talk about the future and we publish books about long-term development, including one about Latin America, which is the part of the world where I was born in Venezuela. And we make scenarios to the year 2030. We presented this at the World Economic Forum, which is the famous meeting in Davos, Switzerland. And then I had the opportunity to be with very interesting people, including the US President, Donald Trump. Anyway, this was before he was elected 2 years ago, but it was very interesting. We actually did a TV program together in CNN. In the year 2009, a new institution was created to help accelerate the development of the planet. This institution, called Singularity University, is financed by Google and NASA. And I think all of you know Google and NASA. So imagine what is being done in Silicon Valley, bringing people from all over the planet, including we have had already people from Ethiopia at Singularity University, so that they learn these exponential technologies and how they will change humanity. The idea of the Singularity was developed by Ray Kurzweil, who is an engineer from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is also my alma mater. I did my 3 degrees at MIT, and we learn about all these exponential technologies and how computing power is doubling every 2 years. This is normally called Moore's Law, and this actually is happening now faster. Now, every year and a half, computers keep on doubling their power and reducing their price. If this trend continues between 2029 and 2045, we are going to have computers that have more transistors than our brains have neurons. And this will be the beginning of the technological singularity, when computers reach the capability of humans. This is called the technological singularity, when artificial intelligence reaches human intelligence level. The consequences of the technological singularity will be incredible. In fact, you can look at Time magazine that talked about it in one complete issue, and they used the late year of 2045, when the singularity will happen. One of the incredible consequences of the singularity, as you can read the subtitle of the magazine, is the year man becomes immortal. And for the ladies here, do not worry, women also will become immortal. Okay, so this is really incredible. We are living in incredible times between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation of humans. Some people still are 1,000 is 1K, 1K. In Spanish, my native language is 1K, 1K. But this you could not change, because once you made little holes, you could not change this. And therefore, electromagnetic memories were invented. And you can see the first generation of floppy disks. This was 8 inches big, and it was also 1K, 1K. And I used this too 30 years ago. I like to say that 30 years ago we had one mechanical K and one electromagnetic K. In Spanish, 1K plus 1K makes 1 caca. We had 1 caca of technology 30 years ago. Fortunately, technology has been improving, and from caca, we moved to this one that was 512 cacas. And then we moved into this, which was 1.4 mega, and now we all have floppy disk, very powerful. Like this one, for example, is 128 gigabytes, 128 gigabytes. So in 30 years, we have moved from caca to 128 gigabytes. What do you think is going to happen in the next 30 years? In 30 years, we are going to have devices smaller than these, and with more power than your brain. And that will be the beginning of the technological singularity. This is happening in all areas, including in medicine. And I will be talking tomorrow about digital health and talking about the human genome. As you can see, this is my genome. There are many companies that are sequencing the human genome. Fully or partially. With a little device like this, which is called a gene chip, a chip to sequence the genome, you will know which diseases you will have in the future, according to your genes. So after you sequence your genome, you will know what you will die of. Okay? But the reason is for you not to die of that, because in the future, medicine will no longer be curative. Medicine will be preventive. And we will prevent all diseases in the future, thanks to digital health. Also, you will learn where you come from. Let me show you also where I come from, which is in my genes. This is the last few centuries of my father's line. As you can see, at the bottom right, one of my ancestors is Genghis Khan. So once you sequence your genome, you will know where you come from. On my father's side, from Genghis Khan. On my mother's side, you can see from Maria Antoinette. This in the last few centuries. Obviously, if I go thousands and thousands of years back, I come from Ethiopia. Like all humans. Like all humans come from Ethiopia, but in the last few centuries, in between Genghis Khan and Marie Antoinette. This is actually something you will discover. You will be able to recreate your genealogical tree, and for the first time, verify scientifically if your father is really your father. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future, and we will be able to design our children. Actually, we are the last human generation that has not been designed. We will design our children in the next few decades. And if you do not design your child will sue you for not designing them. This is an experiment that I did with one of my students at Singularity University in Silicon Valley, sharing genes. We shared genes, but this is a theoretical experiment to understand how our children could be. You might think that this is expensive, right? This is not expensive. This was incredibly expensive when it began, like all technologies. When it begins, it is very expensive and very bad. When it is democratized, it becomes very cheap and very good. So the Human Genome Project began in 1990, and it took 13 years for the US government and other people who contributed to sequence the first human genome, 13 years, from 1990 to 2003, and it cost over $1 billion. $1 billion. Today, you can sequence your genome for $800. And we expect that in less than 10 years, you will sequence your genome for $10 in 1 minute. $10 in 1 minute. This is absolutely incredible. Yes, this is wow. In fact, I like to say it's better than caca. What is happening in biotechnology will revolutionize the future. And again, this is happening with all technologies. Technologies are changing exponentially, faster, smaller, cheaper, and better. But we do not understand the nature of exponential change because we think linearly. We evolved in a linear world and we think linearly. But technology changes exponentially. And it is very different between linear and exponential. For example, if I give 30 steps, 30 linear steps, each step of 1 meter, I walk 30 meters. Okay, but if I walk exponentially and I double, after 30 doublings, I have walked over 1 billion meters and I have gone around planet Earth 26 times. We don't understand that because we think linearly, but technology is changing exponentially, so get ready for the exponential times. Futurists, we talk about 4 different ways to think about the future. The worst way is to be passive, like the ostrich. You don't want to know what is going to happen. You hide your head. Horrible attitude. A little less bad is to be reactive, like a firefighter that comes in when there is a fire. But it is better to be proactive, like when you buy insurance, to be for the 3 laws of the future. First law of the future. When a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future. The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And the third law of the future. Any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. So we are moving into a magical world, and the technologies of the future will be magical. 30 years ago, it was just the beginning of personal computers. When I studied at MIT, 35 years ago, there were no personal computers. I did my first thesis at MIT on a primitive technology called typewriter. I don't know if you remember those primitive technologies, a caca technology. A typewriter. 20 years ago, mobile phones were growing throughout the world. 10 years ago, companies like Google, Facebook were growing out of California. So what is going to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years? We are going to see magic. Remember, changes are exponential. They are not linear. The next 20 years will not be like the last 20 years. Will be like the last 2,000 years. One of the things we are going to do is we are going to cure aging. We consider aging a disease, but it is a curable disease. And we expect between the next 20 to 30 years to cure aging. For that, one of our professors created a foundation with the very appropriate name of Methuselah Foundation. And they are working on creating mice that will live the equivalent of 1,000 human years. A mouse lives only 2 years. So 1,000 years for a mouse would be 20 years, okay? Equivalent, more or less, to humans. In the last 10 years since this foundation was created, we have been able to triple the life expectancy of mice. We have mice that live the equivalent of 300 human years today. We have mosquitoes that live 4 times their average life expectancy and worms that live 6 times. This has been done in the last 10 years. So imagine what will be done in the next 10 years. In fact, today we actually know that there are immortal cells, and one of the worst immortal cells are cancer cells. Cancer cells do not age, and that is the problem with cancer. Cancer does not die by itself, so you have to kill cancer. If you don't kill the cancer cells, they keep on growing, reproducing, and they do not age. They do not die on their own. You have to kill them. So today we know that cancer cells are immortal, and also germinal cells. The germinal cells that we humans have in our bodies do not age. That doesn't mean that they are truly immortal, because if a piano falls on me, you know, my germinal cells and me, we die. But germinal cells do not age. So today we know that the best cells, which are the germinal cells, and the worst cells, which are cancer cells, do not age. And now scientists are trying to understand how to stop the aging process and how to reverse it. In fact, 3 years ago, Google created a company, a subsidiary called Calico. Calico means California Life Company. And as you can see from the cover of Time magazine, Google thinks that death is a technical issue to be solved. And we expect to solve death in 20 to 30 years. But not just Google. Most companies are realizing that we will be able to stop aging completely. Another company is Microsoft. Microsoft announced that in 10 years they will cure cancer. How can they do that? Wow, we lost this. Okay. How are we going to cure cancer in 10 years? Well, because once we sequence the genome, we will find the mutations that created cancer. And this can be done now that we have sequenced the human genome. So digital health is incredible. We will cure cancer in 10 years. And also Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, announced a few months ago that he's donated all his fortune, all his money, to cure all diseases in 1 generation. All diseases, including aging. We will cure aging in 30 years at the latest. So, but if you die in the next 10 to 20 years, we have Plan B. Plan B is called cryopreservation. You know, there are actually many people who are cryonically preserved. We have been doing research in cryonics for the last few decades, and there are some big centers of cryonics in Arizona, in Michigan, in Russia, and in other countries. I just created one in Spain, and it was actually in charge of freezing the first Spanish person. So there are hundreds of people who are frozen today, expecting to be reanimated in the future when we have more advanced technology. This is not a joke, this is reality. In fact, let me invite you to a conference I'm organizing in California, which is called RAD, Revolution Against Aging and Death, where we will show the first human that is being rejuvenated today. Liz Parrish, at the bottom right, is the first person in human history that is being rejuvenated. She's undergoing 2 experimental treatments for the last few months. And if you really want to see how to be rejuvenated, come to California and discover how this is being done. This is experimental, but I think it will be successful. And very soon, these therapies will be public, maybe in 10 years. Let me talk quickly about the 4 technologies that will change humanity, according to the National Science Foundation. They are nano, bio, info, and cogno, and these technologies are converging and converted, 5 more minutes, okay? Are converging in what we call the technological singularity, and we will be able to augment the human hardware and the human software in the next few years, and also create virtual worlds. This is, for example, Microsoft HoloLens that lets you create virtual worlds that you can share with other people. So I want you to tell you 2 numbers. One is the complexity of the human hardware. The human genome is 3 gigabytes of information, 3 gigabytes. This pen drive I showed before is 128 gigabytes. How many people can I fit here? 128 gigabytes divided by 3 makes 42.6. So I can put here the genome of 42 Ethiopians and one little Eritrean. Oh, my apologies. I just like to make bad jokes, huh? So we are basically working information, and we will be decoding the brain and augmenting the brain. Normally we talk about the brain having three parts: the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, and the neocortex. Today we are talking about creating an exocortex that will expand our brain. Sergey Brin, co-founder of Google, he says that Google wants to be the third half of your brain. The third half of your brain, and then it will be the fourth half of your brain, and then it will be the fifth half of your brain, and soon you will have more brain outside than inside. The ICT will allow us to grow our brain. The complexity of the brain actually is only 10 to the 17 operations per second. That is all the complexity that we have in our brain, 10 to the 17 operations per second, and we are going to reach this level of complexity in 20 years. And now scientists are trying to connect one brain to another brain. They have done this with mice, with monkeys, and we will be doing this with humans. This is a device I use with my students, which is the first generation of mind readers. Mind readers. This basically has an electrode here that captures what is happening in the frontal lobe of my brain and transfers it to a computer and soon to other brains. In 20 years, we will be able to communicate from brain to brain. And speaking is a very bad system of communication. Talking is very primitive. Talking has a very narrow bandwidth. It's very slow and very inefficient. In 20 years, we should be able to communicate from brain to brain. And we will be merging with the robots. These are the last 20 years of Asimo by Honda. Can you imagine the next 20 years? In 20 years, Honda will have more capabilities, Asimo and similar robots, than humans. And robots will have feelings. At MIT, they are working on understanding the feelings of robots. And in South Korea, the Congress of South Korea is discussing a law to give human rights to robots. Human rights to robots in 10 years in South Korea. I don't know what is being discussed at the Congress in Ethiopia, but in South Korea they talk about human rights, and these robots will be incredible. Look at those robots. Fantastic. And for women too. For women, you will have your fantastic macho robots with one advantage: they will not get tired at night. But we think robots are bad. We normally think robots are bad because of a Terminator. Or as we call him in California, the Governator. And robots are bad, even female robots are bad, even when they have robot sex, they are bad. But are robots good or are they bad? It depends on where you are born. If you are born in Japan, you know that robots are good. Robots are good in Japan, and also the same is happening now in Korea and in China. So robots are good in certain parts of the world, and that is why Japanese companies and Korean companies and Chinese companies now are manufacturing robots, humanoid robots. But this is not robots versus humans. This is humans and robots. This is a new civilization of cyborgs, where we are mixing machines and humans. We had the first cyborg at the Olympic Games in London in 2012. Last year, we had the first cyborg Olympic Games in Switzerland, where humans who were disabled, thanks to technology, they became super-abled. In 4 years, we will have bionic eyes that will be better than human eyes. And who can tell a blind person that they cannot see, or that they cannot see better than we do today? This will happen. And in 2020, in the Olympic Games of Japan, they will have also the first Olympic robot games, only robots in Japan. This is called transhumanism, which is how humans will transcend our limitations with science and technology. We are not the end of evolution. We are just the beginning of technological evolution, conscious evolution. But we have to do this carefully, very carefully. We don't want to finish like that. Human evolution has not stopped, as we all know. Lucy lived here 3 million years ago, maybe more. And then we came, and something will come after us, post-humans, humans enhanced. But we have to do this carefully. We have the possibility to cure all diseases in the next few years. In 5 years, we will be able to cure paraplegic people. In 10, 15, 20 people, we will cure these horrible diseases. We will cure Parkinson's, we will cure Alzheimer's, and we will cure aging at the latest in 30 years. We are going to see the death of death. The death of death. But as the Chinese say, there is always yin and yang. And this is so complex that even inside yin-yang, there is little yin-yang. And even more little yin-yang. So we have to think about the future. This is the famous picture of the world at night by NASA. And you can see we can illuminate the world or leave it dark. If you look at Korea, I also go to Korea very often. There are two Koreas. There is the Korea of the future in the south, the country with the best internet in the planet, and then there is North Korea in the north, the last country in the planet without internet. Where do we want to go? To the future or to the past? Therefore, we have to meditate. We have to think deeply about the future, how we use ICT to transform humanity. And I finish with this beautiful Chinese word that means crisis. I lived 3 years in Japan, and so I learned Chinese characters. But crisis is a very complicated word, and before I wrote it upside down or sideways, now I write it well. And this means crisis. It has two characters. The first character means danger, but the second character means opportunity. Humanity is in the middle of the biggest crisis ever. We are at the gate of heaven or hell. So where are we going? Thank you very much.
Dr. Cordiero, you're a very dangerous man. I was going to actually suggest, but it's all about girls anyway, what's in there. Now, when you talked about designing children, can we also design our wives and husbands as well?
We can modify.
And robots, do they have, gender or sex? Because you talked about, okay. Incredible. We are so pressed for time that we had to cut him short with this little note I slipped him earlier. But you're incredible. You're going to have a chance to see him in the next few days. Please don't miss any of his speeches. Incredible. And thank God I'm going to be the first generation of the undying man. I'm only 39 now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the final speaker for this session will be Mr. Noah Samara, founder and CEO of Yazmi USA, an international satellite broadcasting company. Please welcome Mr. Noah Samara for me.
So I want to give Dr. Cordiero more of my time. It was really just an amazing speech, one of the best I've ever heard. Your Excellency, Dr. Debretsion, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm honored to speak at the start of this ICT EXPO Ethiopia 2017 and delighted to be back in the land where I was born and raised. Coming home triggers memories, and I must say that being at Ethiopia's Expo gets me thinking about communications in Addis when I came of age here in the 1960s. Back then, the telephone was simple if it was local. A call from here to Dire Dawa was an exercise in teamwork, often taking a series of operators to make a connection. The changes are so radical and profound. 50 years ago, telephony, telegraphy, wireless supported other activities. Today, ICT permeates every aspect of our lives, every activity. We rely on it for our systems of government, finance, health, industry, transport, education, and soon, as Dr. Cordero was mentioning, we will rely on it for becoming immortal. And we entrust ICT with critical aspects of even our national defense. Soldiers today must be skilled with a rifle and a computer. If you need proof that ICT permeates everything, this expo will show you why. The technologies on display in the exhibition hall apply to a vast scope of human activity. Yet, and here is where I diverge with Dr. Cordero, yet for all their brilliance, it takes human expertise to determine how we use ICTs, and human expertise to determine how we operate them. And the people behind ICTs also matter. For much of the 20th century, the engineers and operators who arranged and ran Africa's ICTs came from other places outside of Africa. Even after independence, African nations depended on technical expertise from Europe, Asia, and North America. I'm overjoyed to say we live in a different country, a different century, a different cosmos. It's evident. The proof is right before our eyes. It surrounds us at this expo, and to paraphrase words from the US, the ICT infrastructure of Ethiopia, of this land, and its future are of Ethiopians, by Ethiopians, for Ethiopians. As ICT sector has come of age. Saying this, we must all feel enormous gratitude to the leadership and the people who have worked hard to bring ICT here. ICT has come of age, and as an Ethiopian who has made it his life's work, it's a momentous occasion for me. It's momentous, I believe, for all of us. Think of it. To come of age and reach adulthood, to enjoy the prerogatives of autonomy and independence, to feel assurance in exercising those prerogatives is an incomparable milestone in the life of a person or the life of a nation. To come of age and savor the freedom, the confidence, the self-possession could be absolutely intoxicating. But coming of age always comes with some responsibility. And our responsibility in the IC sector is deep and serious because we design and build systems to arguably distribute the most precious commodity that we have on the planet, which is information. Last month, the economists declared the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, it is data. But I'm sure that's not news for this audience, because in truth, we've long known that access to information is indispensable to human health, stability, and advancement. Access to information enables communities to provide food, sanitation, medical care for their members. Access to information means teachers will be capable of guiding children to become literate and numerate, essential skills that and as citizens. And access to information creates the demand for more information. Trust me, it never, ever fails. In every age and in every land, people hunger for information. By the same token, Where there is a poverty of information, you will find a poverty of health, sustenance, a poverty of human dignity. My friends, life is short, notwithstanding what Dr. Cordier was saying. And if you can extend my life, I'm ready to go. But life is short and it is infinitely valuable to the person who lives it. Life's value depends on the information that fuels it. But how well we live our lives and how valuable we make it should never depend on the access or the lack thereof we have to information. Information, as a matter of human right, should be readily available to everyone. Sadly, have little or no access to the quality and the magnitude of information they need to lead fulfilled lives. The number becomes more daunting when you look at pastoralist communities that make up 11% of the population, yet are continuously mobile, dispersed over literally 60% of the land. How do we get digital information to these people who are desperately in need of it? There are more ways than the internet to get information to distant communities. One solution is YASME. The YASME system harnesses the power of space to beam knowledge to remote locations and populations. Our satellite transmits information directly to tablet computers, so in the hands of a youngster, the tablet takes the place of a backpack filled with textbooks, acts as a reference library, and even serves as a portable desk. The YASME system dynamically updates content on the tablet, enabling the device to take a girl or a boy from simple addition to advanced calculus. Of course, applications of the YASME system go beyond pupils in school. It can train an army of skilled technicians to introduce and sustain manufacturing in Ethiopia, to provide frontline health workers with urgent information to stop epidemics and pandemics. It can give agricultural extension workers techniques that will improve yields and lives of farmers. The YASME system can do all this, and we've already done much of it. Over the past 2 years, we've ran exhaustive trials in Ethiopia and across Africa, and the bottom line is it works, and works beautifully. We have our booth, and in our booth at this expo, we are demonstrating live YASME in action, and we invite all of you to come and visit. So YASME works, but really what is interesting is not YASME or the hardware. What is really interesting is the information itself. We know this as surely as we know anything. We know educating girls leads them to become mothers whose families are healthier, prosperous, and produce better educated students. We know information about basic hygiene and nutrition saves lives, prevents disease. We know children informed by years of education grow into adults who earn more, live longer than children out of school. We know nations that invest in information and education get dividends measurable in GDP and societal stability. We know that ultimately a poverty of information is grotesquely expensive. As Derek Bok from Harvard put it, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. We know that squandering even one life to ignorance is an incalculable loss. How did Hamlet put it? What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god, the paragon of animals, the beauty of the world. We know that squandering even one life to ignorance is an incalculable loss. I have no illusions about the scope of the problem. It is gigantic. But then, so are we. So are our capabilities. We are powerful, very, very powerful, especially when we unite in a conviction that we can and must transform a nation. We, as Ethiopians, are not constituted to shrink from challenges or threats. A case in point, by the late 1800s, European powers scrambled for Africa, seized nearly all of its territory. Only two nations remained independent, the Republic of Liberia and Ethiopia. Emperor Menelik II expected an attack by Europeans and resolved to protect the country. In 1891, he sent a letter to Queen Victoria in which he wrote, "I have no intention at all of being an indifferent spectator." And true to his intentions, 2 years later, by 1893, Ethiopia had purchased 83,000 rifles and 29 cannons from Europe. The attack came in 1896, and the Ethiopian army was ready, routing Italian forces at the now very famous Battle of Adwa. That was in 1896. In 2017, maybe, just maybe, we can find it in our souls to echo Menelik II and declare that we too have no intention at all of being indifferent spectators to massive poverty of information that impoverishes millions of lives in our nation. We can make a difference, but only if we choose to. An Amharic proverb says it perfectly. የማይሰራ ሰው አይሳሳትም። የተሳሳተው ግን እጁን አጣምሮ ይቀመጣል። The one who is mistaken is the one who does nothing. So, my friends, let us resolve to transform our nation by bringing information to those who need it most. We have the resources, we have the acumen to make it. What we need is the courage of action, the courage of our conviction, backed by the knowledge that we have come of age. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do hope that we get to hear more from Mr. Noah Samara in the coming few days. Madam Director, Doctor, and Sir, we are going to cut short this event, and we're not going to do the Q&A session. We were, planning to have a question and answer session, at least for each one of you, one question, but unfortunately, Millennium Hall has to close at 6 o'clock, so we have to go, and the ministers have to go as well. So we're going to have to ask you to take your seats, but thank you. Please give them a round of applause for me for wonderful presentations. Now, before I send you off to the ribbon, I'm just going to take a minute and recognize our sponsors once again, because they are the ones who made it possible. Our platinum sponsors, Ethio Telecom and Techno Mobile and Huawei, and silver sponsors, USAID and Yazmi. Our bronze sponsors, Ascent, Cisco, Digital Africa Telecom, Kifia, ZT, and Deloitte, and Deloitte, how do you pronounce it? Deloitte. Deloitte and Simon as well. And then partners, our partners are Oracle and MasterCard, and official carriers, our official carrier is Ethiopian Airlines, a media partner is EBS, and hospitality partners are Jupiter International Hotel, Ambassador Hotel, and Sapphire Addis Hotel. Thank you all so much. What we're going to do now is go cut the ribbon and officially open the expo. And His Excellency the Minister would be followed first by his cabinet, then the rest of us will follow through here. Please, thank you so much. Have a wonderful expo now. We will be going out this door, all of us, all together.